One of the things we talk about with the energy transition, with the energy revolution, is that you no longer need centralized belching power stations and to be dependent on big companies. You can actually put that technology on your own sites. You can generate yourself. You can have control. And you and I do a lot of work in this area, and we call it smart microgrids. Let's break that down.
Fundamentally, it's what happens your side of the meter. Everybody who consumes electricity or gas has a fiscal meter, the meter which by law is required to record what you use so someone can charge you for it. If you take control of what happens your side of that meter by you add in renewable generation, solar panels, maybe even wind, depends. If you live on top of a volcano, you could drill a big hole and have geothermal. So, whatever. If you're in Iceland, it's probably an option. What you basically do is you take control of your own energy. So you decide about how you distribute your own generation. You could even export some of it out through cables or through the meter back to the grid. But fundamentally, you want to make as much of your own energy as you can. Use as little of it as possible, so focusing on your efficiency and how you perform, and give yourself this ability to make and store your own energy. I mean, there are many different technologies that you can integrate into a microgrid, not just the normal obvious wind and solar stuff. Heat pumps obviously are becoming more viable as a commercial heat source now, as they're getting more technically advanced. You can put anaerobic digestion in, which for, in simple terms, it's basically dealing with your waste, and from that you're creating gas, which you can then put into a generator or burn yourself. But it's methane gas, which you're turning into carbon dioxide. So it's actually whatever it is you're getting rid of would degrade somewhere else and create methane. So you're actually enhancing the dealing with the carbon. And there's various other products that bring these together, and they can all be integrated as part of a microgrid to give you energy independence.
So when we say microgrid, we're talking about like a mini national grid on your own site.
Yeah.
And you're producing your own energy more cheaply, obviously, than you do from importing it. And you've got control. If there are any problems on the grid, which there have been, you're insulated from them. You might be able to make a bit of money by exporting it, but generally you want to use it. The second thing then is the smart bit, which is using it in a clever way.
In a clever way. So what you basically do is you come up with smart logic that decides when you want to use the battery, when you don't want to use the battery, when you want to focus on solar, when you want to focus on wind, whether you want to shift your production slightly or whatever to take advantage. Because if you've got a land covered in solar panels, the best time to do something that you need a lot of electricity for is in the middle of the day, because that's when you get most electricity. So, work longer hours in the summer, shorter hours in the winter, pack your product at night and manufacture it during the day, all these sorts of things that you can do. And the whole concept of smart grid is not just about the energy itself, but how you interact with it as well. So it's very critical potentially for businesses that are quite energy intensive and operate on normal market margins, because if you're spending 20% of your turnover on energy and you can save 20% of your energy, all of a sudden you're making 4% of your turnover as profit.
Which is actually very significant.
Especially if you're only making 10% to start with.
Yeah, and that for company valuations is very significant because you can increase profitability. It drops straight to the bottom line.
Yeah.
Okay, we've talked about what smart microgrids are. Let's talk about some examples of what you've done in the past.
My favourite one is chocolate. I got invited to a site to look at a refrigeration problem. They had multiple refrigeration units basically to cool the chocolate down after they'd manufactured it. And it was really complicated and didn't work very well and wasn't efficient and whatever. And while I was there, the engineer on site, as they do, is very proud of his setup. And he walked me through the whole process. And on site, they basically took raw cocoa beans, roasted them with the shells on, knocked the shells off, then basically what you then do to make chocolate is you grind the cocoa beans down into ever and ever finer paste. And the longer that you grind them down for, the smoother the chocolate. So
we're getting into 10-minute chocolate right now. So
yeah, but
let's get to the energy.
10-minute chocolate. So we went through this process and then we got to the refrigeration. And I said to this guy, I said, well, what happens to the shells? Because it's the only thing I could think of that it didn't go anywhere. And he said, oh, we just put it in bags and sell it as pig food.
Right.
And I said, well, if you don't mind me asking, what do you get for it? He said, well, about £90 a tonne. And I said, well, what's the calorific value of the shells? He
The
said,
energy content.
Yeah. What do you? He said, what do you mean? And I said, well, why don't you burn the shells? Most of your energy on this site, almost all the gas you consume is used in roasting the beans. If you can offset some of that, that fuel will probably be cheaper. You'd have to change a boiler. Well, I'll do the sums for you and I'll come back. It might be nothing. I found out that because of the way the cocoa beans were roasted with the bean inside, some of the oil, the cocoa butter, leaked into the shells. So the calorific value of these things was really high. And if you burnt the cocoa bean shells, it actually created more heat than you needed to roast the cocoa beans. Right. So it looked almost an exothermic reaction. And there was enough heat left over so that I could design a system that then used a particular type of refrigeration device called an absorption chiller, which basically works on steam heating. Not only could I design a system whereby they could burn the cocoa shells and take the gas away.
Lowering costs,
lowering carbon. And basically they had a biomass renewable fuel, because one of the big problems with biomass is logistics. It's getting your fuel to the site. Well, they already brought it to site as the raw product.
So it's a real circular economy thing.
The great thing about this particular chocolate organisation, one of the major organisations on the planet, they then look to apply this technology in other places because it's, like you say, a circular economy, and it's an ideal concept of a microgrid, not solar panels, not wind, not heat pumps, but using energy in a different way for the benefit of the site itself.
Yeah.
You have to pay for your kit first. I mean, let's be honest about this. You have to pay for the stuff that you need to use, but that's quite quick.
Someone has to pay for it.
Yeah, someone has to pay.
Someone else, plenty of people will pay for it.
Yeah. I mean,
and they'll rent it back to you at, a reasonable cost.
I mean, we lease our cars. We went and bought cars for years, and it's the same sort of principle. Use someone else's capital to provide you with a piece of equipment which is up to date, does the best job that you need it to do, but you don't have to use your capital to do it. And there's a lot of that about.
And it goes straight to your bottom line, goes straight to your multiple. That's why, we work with a lot of private equity backed companies who get that, and they're like, well, if I can put, 200 grand on my bottom line, and I'm on a 5 times multiple, that's £1 million of valuation, okay? And maybe on a 10 times, then it's 2 million.
And it's a simple message about taking control of a client's energy, if you like, downstream of the meter, that I can't understand why more finance directors in companies don't get, because basically you're looking at a proposition where people will come to you and say, we will bring our money to your business, we will invest it in your business to give you more profit, and all you have to pay is the operational cost.
Well, they don't know it's possible. Often energy's complicated, it requires engineering. People don't engage with it.
Yeah.
Unless they come talk to us.